Let's not waste time. You've probably been told that if you work hard enough, achieve enough, and fill your life with enough experiences, happiness will naturally follow. So you've done just that. You keep your schedule packed. Your to-do list is endless. Your calendar is full of meetings, events, social plans, and productivity hacks. Why, with so much going on, do you still feel so empty? Why does a life that looks full often feel so hollow inside? And more importantly, what if this isn't your fault? What if it's not a personal weakness, but a systemic trap? Erich Fromm warned us about this decades ago. He wrote about a modern world where people are conditioned to believe that having more leads to being more. That success is defined by accumulation, not by meaning, and in chasing more money, more status, more achievements, more stimulation, we've unknowingly sacrificed something essential, the ability to simply be. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly present? When was the last time you enjoyed a moment without feeling the urge to document it, share it, optimize it, or move on to the next thing? We've built a world obsessed with doing, but we've forgotten how to live. And this is no accident. The modern system is designed to keep you in this loop, constantly striving, endlessly consuming, perpetually unsatisfied. So if you've been feeling a quiet emptiness beneath your busy life, you're not broken. You're not alone. You're experiencing exactly what this system is meant to produce. Burnout that hides beneath the surface of so-so success. The good news? Once you see the trap, you can begin to escape it. Let's dig deeper. You wake up and reach for your phone before your feet even touch the floor. You scroll through messages, notifications, endless updates. It's not that they're truly interested, it's just automatic now. You tell yourself it's a harmless habit, but deep down you feel the drain. The dopamine hit fades quickly, leaving a strange restlessness behind. You get through the morning on autopilot. Coffee, meetings, emails, tasks. You check boxes, but rarely pause to breathe. Even meals aren't immune. How often do you eat without really tasting your food? Mindlessly scrolling, distracted, barely aware of what's in front of you. Then comes the afternoon slump. More caffeine, more scrolling between tasks, more checking updates you don't really care about. By evening you're exhausted but wired. Rest should feel good, but instead it feels uncomfortable. Silence feels threatening, so you fill it, streaming show after show, video after video. Another dopamine hit, another brief escape. You might tell yourself it's relaxation, but you can feel it. The same pattern repeats in relationships. You chat with friends online, but the conversations feel shallow. You spend time with people, but the connection often feels surface level. Intimacy becomes harder. You catch yourself pulling away, distracted even when you're supposed to be present. Hobbies that once brought joy now feel like tasks. Books go unread. Projects gather dust. Your attention span fractures. Concentration becomes harder and harder to maintain. And through it all, this quiet emptiness grows. A subtle, persistent sense that something vital is missing. You try to outrun it by doing more, achieving more, optimizing more. But the faster you run, the deeper the emptiness seems to get. And here's the harsh truth. This is exactly what modern life conditions you for. A system that prizes constant activity over genuine presence, stimulation over meaning, performance over connection. You were never taught how to sit with yourself, how to be. You were taught how to perform, to produce, to accumulate. And that is why, no matter how full your life looks, the feeling of emptiness lingers. But why does this happen? Why, in a world of infinite opportunities and endless options, do we feel more empty than ever before? Erich Fromm saw this coming. Decades ago, he wrote about the fundamental shift in modern human consciousness, from being to having. In traditional cultures, a person's sense of self was rooted in who they were, in their relationships, in their inner qualities, in their lived experience of the world. But in the modern industrial and consumerist era, identity became tied to possession, to accumulation, to measurable outputs. Success stopped being about the richness of inner life and started being about how much you could display to the world. Fromm called this the pathology of having mode. In the having mode, Life becomes a race. You are taught that happiness comes from acquiring more money, more achievements, more experiences, more followers, more objects, more validation, and once you acquire something, the system immediately presents you with the next thing to chase. The loop never ends. But here's the trap. The more you chase external markers of worth, the more disconnected you become from your inner world. The deeper your reliance on possession, the weaker your sense of being. You lose the ability to find joy in the present moment, because every moment is judged by what it can produce, what it can be turned into. Even experiences become commodities. Vacations aren't just for rest anymore. They're content for social media. Relationships aren't spaces for genuine connection. They're curated performances of connection. Hobbies aren't for joy. They're for side hustles or productivity metrics. And rest? Rest is treated like laziness. Doing nothing is seen as wasted time. In this culture, slowing down becomes a radical act. But why does this matter so much? Because when you live entirely in the having mode, you lose the ability to simply exist. You begin to experience yourself as a collection of achievements and acquisitions, rather than as a living, breathing human being. And here's the cruel irony. The more you succeed by societal standards, the emptier you may feel inside, because no amount of external validation can fill the void left by the absence of real being. Fromm warned that this mode of life leads inevitably to alienation. Alienation from nature, from others, and from oneself. You become a stranger to your own inner life. You lose touch with your genuine needs, your authentic feelings. You live outwardly busy, inwardly starved. And yet the system encourages you to double down. If you feel empty, it tells you to buy more, do more, achieve more. It presents more distractions, more consumption, more stimulation. But none of it addresses the root cause, the severing of your connection to being itself. This is why the more you chase, the less satisfied you become. It's why burnout can creep in, even when you seem to be winning at life. Because the metrics you're chasing can never replace meaning. They can't create presence. They can't nourish your soul, as Fromm wrote. If I am what I have, and if what I have is lost, then who am I? The terrifying answer for many today is I don't know. This is the existential crisis at the heart of modern life. A crisis masked by busyness, by consumption, by constant doing. But beneath it all, the emptiness waits. And until you confront this core illusion that having is the path to being, you will remain trapped in the cycle. No amount of optimization will free you. No new app, no new goal, no new possession can substitute for the simple, profound experience of presence, of being fully alive. So the real question becomes, how do we begin to shift? How do we reclaim a way of living rooted in being, not having? That's where we turn next. But if this way of living feels so empty, why do we keep falling into it? Why does it feel almost impossible to break the cycle? Because it isn't random. It's by design. The modern system, our economy, our technology platforms, our cultural narratives, is built to keep you trapped in the having mode. Think about it. Every app you use, every social media platform, every productivity tool, what are they really training you to do? Not to be present, not to feel, but to chase, to consume, to produce. Infinite Scroll wasn't created to help you learn. It was created to keep you hooked. Notifications aren't about connection. They're about conditioning you to crave constant stimulation. Metrics, likes, followers, shares aren't about genuine relationships. They're about externalizing your sense of worth. You've been taught to equate busyness with value, to see rest as unproductive, to fear boredom as failure. And this conditioning goes deeper than technology. It's cultural. From childhood, you're praised for achievements, not for self-awareness. You're encouraged to compete, not to connect. You're taught to optimize every aspect of your life, to hack your sleep, your diet, your relationships, your time. But in this endless optimization, life itself becomes a project to be managed, not an experience to be lived. The system rewards this. It rewards the high performer, the constant producer, the tireless consumer. It tells you, if you're tired, you're not doing enough. If you're empty, you need more stimulation. If you're burned out, you need better productivity hacks. But here's the devastating truth. This is self-exploitation. You become both the driver and the driven, the master and the slave. You push yourself harder and harder, believing it's your choice, when in fact the system has programmed you to run this way. As Fromm warned, modern capitalism doesn't need to use overt force. It uses seduction. It convinces you that you are free, even as it narrows your possibilities. You're free to choose between thousands of products, thousands of distractions, thousands of shadow relationships. But the one thing you're not taught is how to reclaim your own presence, how to resist the compulsion to do more, how to simply be. And so, even as you succeed externally, you deteriorate internally. Your attention fragments, your nervous system frays. You become dependent on the very system that drains you. And the more drained you feel, the more you turn to the system for relief. More content, more consumption, more distraction. It's a perfect loop, a machine designed to feed on your emptiness while convincing you to run faster and faster inside it. Breaking this loop isn't easy, but it begins with seeing it clearly. And now that you do, what comes next? So what does this cycle actually cost you? More than you realize. Because the emptiness you feel isn't just an abstract discomfort. Over time, it seeps into every aspect of your life. It erodes your capacity for joy. It blunts your emotional range. It weakens your ability to connect with others and with yourself. You may still look high-functioning from the outside. You get things done. You maintain appearances, but inside you begin to drift into a state psychologists call functional depression. You keep moving, but the movement feels hollow. You smile, but it's forced. You socialize, but you feel disconnected. Even when surrounded by people, you feel alone. Rest no longer restores you. Hobbies no longer excite you. Relationships feel like obligations rather than sources of meaning. You find yourself increasingly unable to tolerate silence. The moment things get quiet, the emptiness rushes in. So you fill the void with noise, with scrolling, with endless busyness. But the more you do this, the more your nervous system deteriorates. You become hyperstimulated and exhausted at the same time, wired but tired. And gradually, you lose touch with the deeper parts of yourself. Your intuition dulls, your creativity wanes, your ability to feel awe, wonder, or deep satisfaction fades. You may even start to wonder, do I still know who I am beneath all this activity? This is the tragedy of the having mode. It doesn't just steal your time, it steals your being. It replaces depth with distraction, meaning with metrics, presence with performance. And here's one of the darkest outcomes. Relationships suffer deeply in this state. Intimacy requires presence. It requires patience, vulnerability, attention. But when you're trapped in the having mode, these capacities erode. You become restless with others. You seek surface-level interactions because deeper ones feel taxing. You withdraw emotionally even from those you love, and they feel it. They may not say it, but they sense the growing distance, the growing numbness. Over time, this can hollow out even the most important connections in your life. And yet, when you feel this disconnection, the system tells you to fill it with more consumption, more stimulation, more doing. It's a vicious cycle, one that leaves you feeling more isolated, more anxious, more burned out. And here's the cruel irony. The emptier you feel, the harder you work to outrun that feeling, to achieve more. You consume more, you distract more, but it only deepens the void. This is how modern life quietly breaks us, not through dramatic collapse, but through slow, steady erosion, through teaching us to prioritize everything except what truly matters, through keeping us so busy chasing life that we forget how to actually live it. But it doesn't have to stay this way. There is a way out, and it begins with a radical shift, not in what you do, but in how you see, and how you choose to be. Let's talk about how. So how do you begin to break free? How do you shift from this cycle of empty busyness into a life that actually feels meaningful? The answer isn't to do more. It isn't to optimize better. It isn't to consume new self-help hacks. It's something deeper, a shift from having to being, from call this the being mode, a way of living rooted in presence, depth, and connection, not in possession or performance. In the being mode, you don't measure your worth by what you accumulate. You experience your worth by how fully you engage with life. You move from chasing outcomes to inhabiting moments. But here's the hard truth. This shift isn't automatic. The modern world conditions you powerfully toward the having mode. Reclaiming the being mode takes conscious effort. It begins with small, radical acts. The first is learning to tolerate stillness, to sit, even for a few minutes, without stimulation. No phone, no scrolling, no background noise, just yourself, your breath, this moment. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. You'll feel the itch to distract. That's the residue of the having mode, the nervous system trained for constant input. But as you practice sitting with yourself, something begins to change. Your capacity for presence grows. Your awareness sharpens. The emptiness starts to dissolve. Not because you filled it with more, but because you've stopped running from it. The second shift is to slow down, to resist the compulsion to fill every moment, to reclaim space in your day, not for productivity, but for presence. Walk without your phone. Eat without distraction. Have conversations without multitasking. Let yourself feel the full texture of experience rather than skimming across the surface of life. The third shift is to reconnect with intrinsic motivation. Do things not because they look good or produce measurable results, but because they nourish your soul. Read for joy. Create for expression. Connect for the sake of connection, not for performance. And finally, question the narratives you've absorbed. The stories that tell you your value depends on what you achieve or accumulate. Recognize these as cultural myths, not truths. Your worth is not conditional. It isn't tied to your output. It is inherent, simply because you exist. As you internalize this, the grip of the having mode begins to loosen. You start to experience moments of real presence, of genuine connection, of deep, quiet joy. These moments aren't loud. They aren't Instagrammable, but they are profoundly nourishing. And over time, as you cultivate them, something shifts at your core. You move from living on the surface of life to inhabiting its depths, from being a performer of success to being fully, authentically alive. This is the essence of the being mode, and it is available to you not through external achievement, but through inner practice, through reclaiming the simplest, most radical act in the modern world: presence. Because in a culture obsessed with having, learning how to be is an act of quiet revolution. And that revolution begins with you. Now that you see this cycle, now that you understand the trap, you face a choice. You can ignore it. You can go back to your old patterns, back to the scrolling, the endless busyness, the performative living. You can pretend you didn't hear this message. Many will. The system counts on it, on your forgetfulness, on your desire for the comfortable, familiar loop. But here's the truth. Awareness alone isn't enough. Knowing the problem doesn't solve it. Transformation requires action. It requires choice, again and again. In small daily ways. The next time you reach for your phone, the moment you wake up, pause. The next time you feel the urge to fill an empty moment, breathe. The next time you catch yourself measuring your worth by your output, question it. These are small acts, but they are revolutionary, because each one weakens the grip of the having mode. Each one reclaims a little space for being, and over time these small acts compound. They reshape your nervous system. They rebuild your capacity for presence. They reconnect you to life, not as something to chase, but as something to inhabit. But this shift won't happen by accident. It won't happen because you watch this video. It will happen because you choose it, again and again. So, I ask you now, are you willing to begin? Are you willing to practice presence in a world that profits from your distraction? Are you willing to reclaim your life from the loop that drains it? If you are, say it, write it, declare it. In the comments write, I choose to be, not to have, not to perform, to be, because this is where true freedom begins, and it begins with you. If you begin this practice, if you choose to shift, moment by moment, something remarkable will happen. Not overnight, not all at once, but gradually, quietly, from the inside out. One day you will notice that you no longer reach for your phone the moment you wake. You will notice that silence no longer feels threatening, but nourishing. You will find yourself savoring moments that used to blur past. Conversations will feel deeper. Relationships will regain warmth. Simple experiences, walking, eating, reading, will begin to glow with a richness you had forgotten. And most importantly, you will begin to feel whole again. Not because you have acquired more, not because you have optimized perfectly, but because you have returned to being. In a world that teaches you to chase endlessly, choosing presence is an act of courage. In a culture obsessed with having, choosing to be is an act of quiet rebellion. And it is a rebellion worth pursuing, because when you reclaim your presence, you reclaim your life, no longer defined by outputs, no longer enslaved by the loop, free, not in the superficial sense the system sells you, but in the deepest sense, free to live, free to love, free to be. The journey starts now, one breath, one moment, one choice at a time. And if this message resonated with you, if it woke something inside you, share it, comment, subscribe, because this space is not about easy pleasure, it's about reality. And reality, even when it hurts, is where true freedom begins. So tell me, are you ready? Are you ready to choose being